Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. This is my normal monthly Everything in Bloom on the 8th video, and it's very early in the day and my light levels are low, so I'm hoping I don't get blurry pictures, but if it looks a bit dull on the video I can brighten that up electronically, but I won't be able to get close, not handheld, not in this light. But I'm having to film early. It's an Orchid Society meeting today, so I'm going to be out a fair bit of today. So waiting for the brighter light isn't an option, I'm afraid. So let's get going. We've still got a fair bit in bloom, I must admit, but but compared with some other months, we are getting a bit thin on the ground now. It's the Oncidiums. They're just, many have got spikes, or some have got spikes, and you know, they're in their growing season, so they're not in their blooming season. I would imagine we'll get a bit of a Oncidium type spectacle later in the year, but we've got some stuff. So and some I'm pushing the limit that they've gone over really, but I'll just about catch them this month. This is the new Dendrobium I got on the visit to Burnham's, and it's gone really. I mean, this is about the last bloom that's intact, but you can see it's starting to get crinkly, so that's had its days. I'll be looking for growths to push on that one now, and yeah, it's been repotted. It should pull on this year now. I must admit, since it was repotted, these nice big fat plump canes have wrinkled a little bit, but that's the root disturbance. You know, hopefully the new growths will push new roots to go with the older ones, because that's what it's left with now. The Dendrobium wedding bell is still in full bloom. I would love to take this to the Orchid Society today, but I noticed last time I watered it, right at the base of the plant, around the bottom of the plant, I've actually got some scale, which I'll have to deal with. I must admit this year, I'm really low down on the old bug front. I'm not treating anything at the moment. I mean, I'm not prepared to get the big guns out to treat things that just aren't there. I get an occasional mealybug here and there on the odd new growth, but really low numbers, enough to just deal with a Q-tip and some alcohol, just, you know, individual cases. Not worth spraying a whole plant for just a couple on one growth. It's just not worth it. But yeah, the base of that plant is due a repot. I'm just waiting for signs of growth at the base now, and at that time obviously I can give the base a good clean up, hopefully finish those off for good. Things that have been badly affected with scale in the past, like my Tolumnias, I had a real big deal trying to deal with those, and I haven't seen any scale on the Tolumnias for some considerable time now, so I think they're staying clean. The Bratonia, Shelob Tolkien, both spikes are out now. These, for me, never fail to impress. These are just very attractive blooms. A lot of brassia in there, obviously, with the bloom shape, spidery nonsense and all that sort of stuff. But quite honestly, it's the colour combinations on this one. And it's one of those you have to just give it a closer look. That lip is a lovely shade. And then the blotches on it are brown, surrounded by a creamy yellow colour in various patterns. You know, each lip has got a different pattern on it. But very attractive blooms, and that's out of the Oncidium Alliance types, that's quite an easy one to grow. It just performs well. It seems to do well. I'll go along the top up here. The Dendrobium Kuniko just keeps performing. It's keeps pushing out buds from older and older canes. This is the latest little cluster to open on a tiny little old leafless cane up there. This one fades paler as it ages, but it just keeps pushing out more and more buds. I don't see any more new ones now, so we may be coming to the end of this long flush, because this has been in bloom an absolute age, and it's a beauty. The growths from last year are the larger canes up here, starting to arch over now, and I've got a shed load of new growths up there, loads. So this plant is performing excellently, it's growing well, and these leaved canes will be probably where the next set of blooms come from. So there might be a bit of a wait when that one goes over. Now this tiny little Cuthbertsonii is still hanging on to this bloom. I think it's been there about 4 months now. But I've got a feeling it may be going soon. It's starting to look a little faded. We shall see. And then the other, this is a Cuthbertsonii cross with something else. The new bud on this one is still trying to open. It's very slow progress. It's got one open bloom. It had that when I got it. The bud was there when I got it, but it's grown on a bit. Still hasn't opened though. And the new canes at the top, the leaves are pushing on quite nicely now. So I think this one's adapting to its mount, and yeah, that's looking quite good. I'm quite pleased with that. Oh, so that's the ones up the top. Let's do the 2 Miltoniopsis. This is Herr Alexander. A poor spike, quite honestly, single bloom, but when the blooms are that large and that attractive, you know, if it's just going to do one, I don't mind. And it does have another spike coming up here with 2 buds, so you know there'll be a bit of a progression. And the yellow Miltoniopsis hybrid, this is still looking good. I'm just so pleased with this, especially it was a gift, an unknown quantity. I've waited a fair amount of time for this one to come into bloom, but these blooms are absolutely stunning and fragrant too. So all the Miltoniopsis are fragrant, quite honestly, and the only way I've managed to describe the fragrance reasonably accurately is they smell like roses, but with a hint of soap. I'm not very good with describing fragrances. And this Infundibulum cross is still looking excellent, and it will go on looking excellent for some considerable time. It's pushed a single bloom out on an old cane here. This cluster of 4 looks absolutely wonderful. The depth of colour in the lip has a slight change. I'm pretty sure that was a little more yellowy, and it's going a deeper colour, heading towards orange, I think. Memory's not so good. And it does look like I've got another bud coming here. So we shall see, but that's looking good. And the beauty of the black hair type, especially if it's got Infundibulum in it, is the blooms really do last a long time, and they're a lovely pristine white. They do sparkle if they catch the light properly. And that's that one. Have a quick look at the Phalaenopsis down in the depths down here. This one, oh, thanks to a YouTube, no, actually thanks to somebody on Facebook, I think, actually found the name for this one for me. It's Sogo, oh God, I've forgotten again. I'll have to do a pop-up. It takes me ages to learn names. And the other little, this one here is growing badly. There's something incredibly wrong with this plant, but it's still alive. It does have a habit on this particular plant of growing basal plants. Call them cakeys if you like, but it does have a tendency to clump up into several plants, all formed from the base. But you can see there's 2 entirely different coloured blooms on there. So this one's struggling to get a grip with itself, basically. It doesn't seem to want to grow very well. And these are poor quality spikes for this plant. Previous spikes on this one have had 5 or 6 blooms on, not 1 or 2. Yeah, it is a single spike, but it's bloomed. You know, that's the Brontosaurus. So that's the 2 Phalaenopsis down there. We've got not so many Tolumnias out at the moment, but we do have a few. The Europhila, the species, this is the plant over here, This is the bloom spike over here, or one of them. Very attractive blooms, just starting to go. The earliest ones that opened are just starting to fade now, but as you can see, it's already got 2 branches pushing out, so that the life of that particular bloom spike will go on a bit longer. And the other spike is up here, so they're quite a long way from the plant. As Tolumnia blooms go, these are small, and the top portion of the blooms is very tiny compared with the sort of frilly lip shape at the bottom, but nonetheless a lovely colour. And the other 2 that are open, I'll have to get this out because they're pointing skywards at the moment, and I'm not standing on steps to look down at them, so I'll get them down. This is a lovely attractive one. This is lovely spotty patterning, and it does change colour, this one. It does get a bit more pink as it ages. I think that's red butterfly, is it? Oh no, that's one of the Christmas ones. It's got a trade name, MO04. I mean, that could be what it was registered at, but surely somebody could have thought of a better name than that. But yeah, that's its branch spike. You can see the spike was chopped off, and it's branched with another 2 blooms. Then it needs to, this spike needs to come off and let the growth start. You can see the new growth at the base, so I need to get this into growth. The new roots are just starting. Need to get some strength into that. It's quite a youngish, not very strong plant, that one. And then this one's just opened. This is Jairak flyer red butterfly, and this has a multitude of colours on it, and each bloom is quite different, but it's attractive nonetheless. Shades of reds and pinks, and the yellow centre that virtually all Tolumnias have is very, very pale on this one, but nonetheless attractive. This was one of my rescue plants. This was one that got practically eaten by the scale, but you can see it's coming back to life now. That spike came out of the last new growth at the back there, and we've got 3 new growths starting at the base now with a new root system forming. So it's recovered. That's the main thing. That was a struggling one for a while. Lucky to get away with that with the scale. They just ate the base of the plant, and new growths failed, leaves fell off. Real bad infestation. I know better now. In those days when that was bad and the Cattleyas had it bad and Oncidiums, I was trying to use a soapy wash type pesticide, and it works on contact and suffocation. Well, obviously it only works if you cover them, and lots were getting missed down in the crevices and things. Once I changed to the systemic, it sort of cleared them up. So, but it was big guns. I'm not too keen on strong chemicals, but I just had to deal with that. There seemed to be no other way. This little Cattleya is recently opened. This is a new bloom opening. Nice attractive colour, and I've had quite a few comments about this. This has orange in it at some point. One person remembered it opening an orangey colour and then fading to yellow, and another person remembered it as opening yellow and fading to orange. But the one thing it does do is after a week or 2, the petals and sepals curl backwards, leaving the lip sort of sticking out more prominent. But we've got another 5 buds to go on that. First 2 have opened, and it's looking nice. Lovely, lovely miniature Cattleya. That's its size. It's not going to get any bigger than that, although the latest bulb is quite a bit bigger and fatter than the previous one. So doing well. Right, let's get over here. There's nothing down the bottom. My Odontoglossum naevium is still looking good. 2 spikes on that, another one up the back there, and they last for this type of plant reasonably well. I've got a problem with the plant itself. The new growths are not maturing anywhere near the right size. They're managing to bloom, so there's a problem with the plant itself. or it's conditions, or it could, more likely, it's media. But it needs revitalising. It's got a lot of old bulbs on it, and new growths are coming out in many places, and they're coming out high. So I'm getting quite a few aerial roots that are drying off. So I need to deal with that soon. That needs probably needs just splitting up and putting in some fresh media just to sort of revitalise it. But still looking good. And then down here, as far as the plant is concerned, this is a miserable failure. What's going wrong with this plant? I can't work out. This is the Epidendrum. I'll put the pop up. But the blooms are still looking nice, but you can see the base of the blooms are dying back now, and the tops of these spikes are not growing any more buds. So this is coming to the end of its blooming, but it's been in bloom a hell of a long time. But the plant is a mess. It's dropped a lot of leaves, it's lost its colour, it's lost its vigour. Basically, it just objected to being repotted despite having a reasonable root system. And I think what it's done is it's dumped its root system, so it's lost all its vigour. So I'll have to look into that one. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do. But we'll enjoy the blooms while we've still got them. Not too much longer, I don't think now. As I said, once the buds stop forming at the tops of the spikes are finished, basically. But we've still got some blooms. My first Disa has just opened. This is Disa cuensis. Very attractive. They're not large. I mean, some Disa blooms are a hell of a lot larger than this. But just keeping these alive and getting them to bloom in my environment is a little bit of a surprise, because I thought I was going to fail with these, but I thought I'd give them a go. And I started with one pot full, and when I split it up to repot it, I ended up with 3 potfuls. These were the tiny little ones, you know, the very, very small ones. They've grown on, so they took okay, and the first one's bloomed. It's got, looks like 3 buds on that spike, so that's not bad. The other 2 may well bloom later in the year. I think there's 3 in there, maybe 4. And then the pot up the end was the largest of the plants. Now, they bloomed last year, so I don't. What's left in this pot are the new plants, the new plantlets that were formed around the older ones. And then this one was the medium-sized ones, and this one bloomed in the winter, which was very silly. But yeah, we now got another spike on one of these. I will have to repot these end of this year. They do need doing now. They've been in their pots a while now. Right, coming up here, hercoglossum is nearly finished. I don't see any more buds at the moment, so the blooms that I've got at the moment is it. And there's not many left, but it's still in bloom and still looking nice. But it's dropping its blooms now. It's going to put its energy into the new growths. So that's almost done for the year now. It might have an odd little cluster of buds every now and again. It has done that in the past. But at the moment, all the buds are open and it's sort of coming to its close now. I love those blooms. The Friedrichianum, that's coming out to play with me today. That's going to the Orchid Society, see how that does. The hercoglossum went to this society's meeting last time round when it was in full flood, and it actually got a second. And you just have to put up with that at Orchid Societies. On another day it would have got a first. On another day it might not have got anything at all. It just depends what turns up on the day. And that was in competition with probably the best grown and blooming on a sarcochilus I have ever seen in my life. It was a bowlful, and there must have been about 20 spikes on there, all in full bloom. It was stunning, and it was a well-deserved first. I was quite happy to take second to that. Sometimes I don't always agree with the judges, but in that particular case, if I'd been judging it, I'd have still put that one first above my own. But anyway, we'll see how this one does. It's got a first at Bournemouth. It should do well today. And it's just about I don't know whether it's going to make it to go to Malvern. The plants are being gathered together, I believe, Wednesday evening, but the Malvern show goes on till Sunday, so it's got to last that long to be worth sending. I'll have a look in my notes and see how long the blooming lasted last year, and if it's going to last till the end of next week, I think that can go to Malvern. They can't really do much harm to that one. I'm not too keen on putting my plants, the potted plants, into the shows. I mean, one year they did like a beach scene, a cottage garden on a coastline, and they top dressed all of the pots with grit. I had to repot everything when I got home. And normally they top dress them with small bark. Well, you know, if you've got something growing in large bark that needs lots of air around it, you've just cogged up all your flipping air gaps by putting loads of small bark on it. But this is mounted, they can't do any harm to that. So I'll probably take that one along. We'll have to see. That's going to be the only thing for me that's probably suitable to go to Malvern. I may let them have the little cattleya, because the other blooms on that should be opening up. But we'll see. It's a bit of a faff, the Malvern show, because I've got to take them plants round to somebody's house, and they've got them for a long time, and they'll be in a marquee. You know, I mean, last year's show we were right in the middle of that heat wave, and I mean the temperature inside that marquee was absolutely ridiculous. But with all the plants and people spraying their plants and stuff like that, the humidity was ridiculous. There were a lot of people couldn't stay in the marquee. They couldn't stay in there. They came in, they started looking round, and then you could see they were wilting in the heat and the high humidity and having to go outside again and find some shade. It was a hot one last time. We shall see. This Phalaenopsis is looking good. We've only just looked at this, actually, the sweet memory, but it's a nice spike, attractive blooms, and it's looking good. And the only other thing out over here are the two Sharry babies. This spike is probably going to go soon. It's been opened a while, and then the other spike up the back there. I think I've got 3 Sharry babies on the go now. Last time I split up the big plants, this was the larger portion that's starting to show signs of new growths, and bloomed on one of the older bulbs. So that's it this time round. I did notice the orange Vanda's got a spike just starting, and I would imagine the big purple one's not going to be long. This is their time of year basically, so they should do something. So that's what I've got at the moment. But as I say, I've got a busy day today, and I've got travelling to do. This Orchid Society is a bit of a distance to get to, so I'll get this one posted, and we'll leave it at that for this time. As I said, to me it just feels a bit thin on the ground at the moment, but you have to bear in mind a quarter of my collection are Dendrobiums, and nearly all of them are late winter, early spring bloomers. The ones that are still in bloom now are just those that bloom that little bit later in the year. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. Thanks for dropping by. See you next time.